lots of questions about the pair of you, but just a few to highlight, really, just from your point of view, Richard. Best advice for up and coming juniors.
For me, it would be just. I mean, I'm only speaking from experience. When I was starting off and coming through the juniors and stuff, and most people say it without meaning any harm at all, but you get so much advice. So many people think they're trying to help by saying, do this, do that. I think for juniors who are coming through now, you've got to try and find one person and stick to that one person who you trust as far as coaching and advice goes, and just try and build that relationship with one person. And if you're having lessons and if you change coaches after a couple of years or whatever, then that's fine. But I think consistency is key when you're starting off, with what you're trying to learn, foundations wise. And then stay away from booze and women.
I think you ain't going to win anything then.
How do you calculate lead? Everybody wants to know what you see at the end of the barrel. I know it's different from what you see, I see, George sees, but in your head and your perception, what do you see on a 40-yard crosser? That what tip would you give to people to understand the lead that they need to give a target?
Well, that's $1 million question, really, isn't it?
Oh.
And it's one that you would never get a straight answer to, I don't think, because, like you say, everybody sees things totally different. If Tanya and I are shooting together, we can be shooting a 50-yard flat-out Batu, and she'll say, well, I've shot front edge on that. And I think, well, how the fuck can you shoot front edge on something like that, where I've got to see 10 feet lead on it, in my eyes? But it comes down to experience, I think, and you just get a feel for it. And you just, when you've shot, I mean, I hate to think how many targets I've shot through my lifetime, but I think you just get to the stage where you just get a feel for it and you look at it and you just rely on your first instinct. And then if your first instinct isn't correct, that's when you start to think. And for me, I do most of my shooting just on trust, really. So for me to say I see X amount of lead on that type of target, I wouldn't be able to do that. But I'm sure George would say something completely different.
Yeah, I was going to say, George, how do you view it?
Lead as Richard said, is a very perceived, personal thing, and for me, it's all a question of how fast your gun's moving and whether you stop it or not. So, you could not turn around. It's an individual thing, and your timing needs to be right, because if your timing's not spot on when you're shooting, you'll do something different every time. So your lead will vary between shots, and quite often on the same target. Whether the result is the same or not is down to a lot of luck. So for me, I think it's all very well, I've done a DVD, Richard's done DVDs and that sort of thing. And you can look at that. It's not teaching you how you've exactly got to be. It's giving you an idea for you to be able to then take that forward yourself. And everybody is different. Everybody throws a ball differently. Everybody rides a bike differently. It's the same principle, but they do things in a slightly different manner.
Another good question, and again, you talked about defeats and coming back from a bad round. That also applies to club shooters that go on the stand and have one bad stand. What would you advise to people that do have a bad stand, and for them to bounce back after shooting 2 out of 10 and getting their head down, and to recover from that situation, what advice would you give them, Richard?
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, at the end of the day, very, very rarely does anyone go round and shoot a perfect score around a sporting course. So if you've got the mentality that at some point, no matter what class you're in, if you're in C class or AA or treble A, that people are going to miss, but it might not be in the same place. As in, some people might find a target on stand 3 harder than a target on stand 6, and vice versa. So I think you've got to have the attitude that you are going to miss, and when you do miss, you can't let it get to you, because chances are that your opponents are going to come across a stumbling block somewhere as well.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier to George, how many times, and I've been guilty of it over the years as well, you have a bad stand, you walk out of there with your head down, go to the next stand, still thinking about what you've just done, and you might miss another target or 2 because of what you've just done, and you've not left it behind, you've taken it with you, and you come to the end of the shoot and you've lost the shoot by a bird. And that's happened a good few times to me. And the only way to learn not to do it is to lose because of doing it.
Mm. Would you say the same, George?
Yeah, I think your perception of where you are within the sport and your actual ability has got to come into it. I mean, for some people, if they've only just started shooting, 3 out of 10 would be quite a good score on a hard stand. But if you've been shooting a long time and you're a AA shot, 3 out of 10 is not a good score. So the perception of where you are, within your chosen field, too many people are keyboard warriors, in my view. Now they believe in their own importance. You see it all on a Sunday night. Here's my scorecard. I've shot 67. It's my new personal best. I'd like to thank all my sponsors and everything else. And I'm thinking the last thing anybody would want to do is to post a score sheet with 67 on there. But 100 people do, because I think it gives them the confidence to think that they've actually done well. Whereas if it was me, I would turn around and say, I've only shot 67. I felt I could have shot 74. So instead of giving myself a feel-good factor with a lot of people saying, oh, well done, you must keep going and everything else, I'd want to drive behind closed doors to do that. And I think that's where social media has come in, and, people believe that they are that much better than they actually are, when, in my view, you've got to achieve out on the field where you're doing it before you can actually start claiming credibility.
Well, let's hope you start shooting 67s. Richard,
I follow you most of the time. I will.
Touched upon the CPSA a little earlier. You're on the board of directors now. You've been on there a year or so. What made you decide to go on the board of directors?
I got approached by Ian Parker initially. It was February 2019, I think it was. And we met up, had a chat. And, like George said, I think Ian is absolutely fantastic. I think it was something that the association needed, was to have a breath of fresh air. Ian's a keen shooting man. He's learned an awful lot about the sport in a very short space of time. His background is, in all sorts of different sports that he's worked in over the years, fishing, golf, all sorts of stuff. I thought about it for a little while before I accepted. I didn't jump straight in, but I just thought it would be an opportunity to try and just move the sport forward a bit, hopefully try and clean it up a little bit, and just come up with some fresh ideas to see where we can take it. But it's only been a year or so that I've been on there. We've managed to get one or two ideas across. So we just have to see where it goes, really. But it's quite interesting seeing the other side of the sport, what goes on, how much the CPSA do behind the scenes, and especially through this pandemic we've had with the work that they've done with government and the police and everything else to get everyone back shooting again. At this stage, it's fantastic. They've worked non-stop for a long time trying to put all this back in place now. And, hats off to Ian and John and everyone really at the office who've been working on this for us.
We need
Jamie, just sorry. And that Richard, is absolutely fantastic. And to have somebody like you on there driving it with them as a voice from the field, so to speak, is fine. But just touching on the comment that I made about the administrative side, that is where the CPSA is so good for us. But they haven't then got time to go out and find sponsors if they're doing all of that with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's been, I get emails and phone calls from the board and stuff, and then you listen to some of the comments. People are saying, "Well, I've not been able to shoot for 3 months, so do I get 3 months of my membership money back?" Really, it's frustrating because they don't understand what's going on in the background all the time with this. And nobody wants us to be in this situation. So, the people have just got to sit tight and trust what they're doing. And obviously, a lot of people have let their membership lapse at the moment, which, is understandable. And they're going to come back, hopefully, when the competitions kick off again, which, with a bit of luck, could be in, the relatively near future. So just sit tight and go with it, really.
And going back, you're talking about getting outside sponsorship. You kind of, look, we're obviously with guns, we're not PC. We're trying to attract outside sponsorship is very difficult when the sport itself probably doesn't do us any favours. We look at, and that we're not going to go down the road of what's been publicised, and we know what's with rules and things like that. But until all those things get sorted out, we will never get outside sponsorship. And I know that the CPSA and other international bodies work together very well. And in my opinion, from an outsider looking in, you look at it. If we don't clean up all the things that are around it, and we don't, we're smart people and we go out and represent ourselves and our sport, we will never attract the likes of Embassy like we used to have, because why would they want to support our sport if people are fighting from in? And definitely you guys writing to Parliament on behalf of the CPSA has certainly helped us. We've got to be patient with things, but
Going back to sponsorship side of things, I think Carpet Next Day should sponsor the World Championship next year.
No problem at all. I think that's. I think it can be done. It can be done.
Oh. Apparently, they're opening next week.
Oh, right. I'm still waiting for some grass next day, which was ordered about 18 months ago. So I've kind of given up on that.
Yeah, well, you did speak to your old mate Steve Scott. I asked George this question the other day. If you had to watch a Super 6 final, sporting shooters, past or present, who would you like to watch?
Well, let's do one for sporting and one for double trap. So if I do a double trap one first, just for posterity, I would like to shoot in a final with everybody that won a gold medal through my era at the Olympics. So that would be Russell Mark, myself, Ahmed Al Maktoum, Glenn Ellert and Pete Wilson.
Wow, that would be a squad.
Which I think would be quite something to see. But from a sporting point of view, I think firstly I would choose Bill Maguire. I've known Bill ever since he started shooting, really, which, I mean, Bill didn't take up shooting until quite late in life. And we all know how good he is and when he's on form. And he is, for the people that don't know, Bill comes from Tennessee, USA. He is just the nicest person that you would ever wish to meet. And when he's on form, when he's on form, he is just absolutely fabulous. He's such a nice style, and he's the perfect American gentleman. And then I think it'd be quite interesting to have somebody like Joe Wheatear in it. Obviously, Joe ruled the roost in the 60s and 70s with the British Opens that he won stuff. And I think it would be interesting to see how, firstly, how he shot, and B, what he would think of all today's top shots, and difference in the target presentations that we have now with the modern traps, and what they used to shoot, 40, 50 years ago. So I think that'd be quite an education to be able to talk to somebody like him about what his part of the sport was like back in the day. And then probably another American, David Radulovich, who I would say is probably just technically perfect in every respect, be it mentally and, with a gun in his hand. He's just a super nice guy. Obviously, he won the World Fit House Championship 2 or 3 years ago in Hungary. Fabulous ability, it just makes it look so easy. And again, mentally, he's got a great game. And I think a lot of people could learn a lot from watching somebody like him. And then I think, as George said in his Super Six, he'd have to have AJ. I was lucky enough to shoot with AJ a little bit when he did his comeback. Obviously, his era was the 80s and 90s, and then he had a break for a while. And then he did make a comeback for a few years, sadly, before he passed away. And I shot with him a few times. Obviously, a fellow left-hander, such a great guy, a character that you would never, ever, they broke the mould with him 100%. And I just, from the times that I shot with him, I just think he was one of these people that didn't actually know how good he really was. He was almost, if he won something, he just looked surprised. But, fabulous ability, and just, an all-round funny guy just to be around, real sense of humour. And then I suppose I'd have to have George in there just for pure clay breaking ability.
Jamie, there's still one more spot, I think.
Oh, yeah, well.
Did you want that, Grant?
Yeah. I think that would make quite an interesting super final to watch, with a bit of mix of age, ability, and just general
weight.
Yeah. Yeah, there we go.
That would be amazing to watch. But gents, I think we've done an hour and 40. I think for me, it's been fascinating to listen to both of you. Thank you, Richard, for coming on. George, it's always a pleasure to speak to you. Did I say that?
Really? Can I just say at this point, Bill Maguire, you are absolutely right, 100%. But if he's listening to this or watching this, he's no good at golf.
He can catch a bass. He's good at that.
Yeah, I'm sure. Anything that doesn't involve work, he'd be brilliant at.
Yeah. Why do you think he gave up work to take up clay shooting?
Well, listen, we've certainly haven't answered all the questions. I mean, I don't know. Perhaps we could do it again. I mean, we could have some quick fire questions or something like that. If you come back on, Richard, it'd be fabulous to listen to you again.
Yeah, let's do it.
George.
Well, as I say, Richard, thanks very much, Jamie. As always, you've hosted it in a manner that I've never ever seen before. But I'm sure
Well, he almost needn't have even been there, to be honest.
That's shocking. He's got a Band-Aid book and something else up on the new shelf behind him now. Can I just say that on behalf of this vodcast or whatever we're calling it, Carpet Next Day and Grass Next Day are opening next week.
Well, guys,
thanks very much, the pair of you. Really appreciate it, and we'll see you soon. Hopefully, out of lockdown.
All right, stay safe, guys.
Yeah, guys. See you later.
See you later.